Hi guys, today we're going to be learning how to create this cool little animation here where this square bounces off a big green rectangle. I mean, not a green rectangle, a big gray rectangle. So let's get started. So the first thing we have to do is we have to go to code.pen.io, which is a great place where you can build, test, and write some code in CSS. HTML, JavaScript, HTML and JavaScript. So I'm just going to use my template here, since I have one. So, template, this is my template. It's basically, nothing really. Just helps me, do my work faster. So I'm going to change this title from document to, cool little animation. Okay, and then we're gonna add a H1 here. Oops. H1, a cool little agent. So now we're gonna go into this body here, and we're gonna create a canvas. Very important. So now we're gonna add an ID attribute to this canvas, and the ID is gonna be canvas. So we're gonna close that tag off right there, and we're gonna do the end tag /canvas thing. So after we did that, we're gonna go into the CSS here to make the canvas show up a little bit. So in the CSS, we're gonna reference this canvas here by doing canvas and then those curly brackets and enter. And then on this new line here, we're gonna change the width first to 500 pixels, and the height is also gonna be 500 pixels. And the next thing we're gonna change here is the background, so we can actually really see this canvas here. Light to I want to change it to black actually. Let's try black. So yeah, that looks cool right now. So now the next thing we're gonna do here is we're gonna go into this JavaScript, most important part of our little project here. First thing we're gonna do in this JavaScript is we're gonna create a constant variable. So how do we do that? We just use the const keyword to create a constant variable, and we're gonna name this variable the canvas. So what this variable basically is it just references back to this little canvas here, so you can get the context from the canvas and everything else. So we're gonna how do we reference that? So how we do it is you type in document dot get element by ID, and so what this basically is doing is it's searching in this HTML document here for an ID that we type in here. So since we want the canvas, we're going to type in the canvas's ID, which is just canvas. Very interesting name, I know. So now we're going to close that off with a semicolon, because we need a semicolon after everything in JavaScript. Okay, then we're going to do the const thing again, but this time for the context, like I said before. So this variable's name is going to be ctx for context, and we're going to do canvas.getContext, and we're going to get the 2D context, and then we're going to end that statement off with a semicolon again. So now we're going to create this function here, and before we do anything, we're gonna create this function, and then we're gonna call it down here, somewhere down here. Update, and close that off with a semicolon. It's very important that you call it, because once I've not called this function the last time I've did it right here, and it didn't actually work. I was like, what's happening? And then I found out that I haven't called the update function, so that's why it wasn't working. So it was really funny. So now we're gonna inside this update function here, we're gonna write some code. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna clear the screen before we do anything else. That's because we wanted to play an animation, not create a line. So we're gonna do ctx.clear rect, and then we're gonna put the x as 0 and y as 0, and the width as canvas.width, and the height as canvas.height. So what this basically here is doing is it's getting these coordinates of 0, 0, which is right up here. So in an HTML canvas, 0, 0 is right here, and the canvas.width and canvas.height is right here. So in our case, it's 500, 500 is right here. 0, 0 is right there. So yeah, so it's just drawing a rectangle from 0, 0 to 500, 500. So let's get into the drawing the actual thing. So before we do any of that good stuff, we have to create a few more variables. This time they're not going to be constants though, they're going to be actual variables. So we do var x, comma, y. So what this basically is doing is it's initializing two variables at the same time, so it looks a little bit organized, a little bit more organized, and just basically looks a little bit better. And we're gonna initialize the x variable with a value of 0, and the y variable with a value of 0. So we're gonna draw this little, I guess, light green or white this time rectangle right here by doing ctx.fill rect. And before we do that, we have to change the color that we're gonna fill it in. So we're gonna do ctx.fill style equals light green, I guess. And then we're gonna end that off with a semicolon. And this fill rect here, we're gonna do x, comma, y, comma, I guess 25, 12, 6. I've done this because as I've found out before, if on this computer, if I do 12 as the width and 12 as the height, the height just doubles for some reason, and it makes it like a 2:1 ratio rectangle. So I don't want that, so I just doubled down the size of the height. So if it works as 12, 12 on your computer, then use 12, 12. Don't use 12, 6. For some reason on this computer it's not working like that. So let's get back into it. So now after we've done that, we want to create a few more variables. This time it's going to be called delta x and delta y. So we're going to initialize the delta x variable with a value of 1 and the delta y variable with a value of 0.5. This is because, as I've said before, it's doubling the values that I do for the Y, and I don't want it to do that, so that's why I'm doing that. So then down here we want it to draw every frame, so we're gonna do request animation frame, and every animation frame that there is, we're gonna call this update function here that we're inside in. So that so what this basically does, it is once it gets down here, just goes back up here again and redoes this every time the animation frame happens. So yeah, now we're gonna change the X and the Y of this little green rectangle here to plus equals delta X and Y plus equals delta Y. So as you can see, that works really good right here. But the only problem is that it just flies off the screen. It doesn't bounce back. So how do we do that? Well, all we have to do is every time the X is greater than this amount right here, or the X is less than this 0, 0 right here, every time the X is greater than 500, or the X is less than 0, we move it back, we change the delta X and the delta Y to its negative value. So all it does is it just goes back right here, and once it reaches right here, it just goes back right here. So let's do it. Okay, so we do if X is greater than 500, or that's the or symbol right there. You have to have that. So now we're going to check if the X is less than 0. And if it is, then we're going to do this right here. So in this, we're going to do delta X equals negative delta X. And delta Y is equal to negative delta Y. So what that basically does is, if you can see right here, once it reaches here, it bounces back, or at least it should. So let's go back into our code and check why it isn't doing that. Oh, here it is. It's moving back now. For some reason. Oh, yeah. It's because I haven't set this plus 12. So now if I do this plus 12, it's gonna check if it's so basically the X right here is 0, 0. Just do canvas.width. Canvas.width. And if we do this, it should work now. So no, not 120. 12. So what this should do now is it should check if this corner right here, this side right here is hitting this side, and if it is, then change the delta X and the delta Y to negative. So yeah, as you can see right here, it's working really nice, and I'm really happy with it. So that's it, guys. I hope you've had fun, learned something, and enjoyed this whole video. So I hope you comment, like, and share this video, and please subscribe to this channel. Thanks. Bye.